world of Mantica is in turmoil. Forces of evil are ravaging the landscape indiscriminately, and here we have such a force, the Undead, led by an unholy necromancer, behind his legions and legions and legions of zombies. The Green Lady has got wind of this invasion, and she dispatched a barrel full of apples to bribe the local Rhordians into battle to face this threat head on and claim this territory while the allies move in for the kill. That means, of course, that we have the secure scenario, meaning that both sides will be attempting to be within 3 inches of the terrain pieces and controlling them at the end of the game. Double points for terrain pieces located entirely within the opponent's half. We'll go through which of those terrain pieces fall into which criteria for scoring in a minute, but first we're going to go through the forces, starting with the League of Rhordia. Here we have 2 mighty hordes of halfling braves. Behind them is an army standard bearer with the banner of the griffin, boosting them a little bit so they'll be even more mighty, as if their might was in question. Next we have what I like to call the Blob of Death. We have 3 halfling volley guns, a master engineer between them, so that's quite formidable on its own, and then behind them we have a horde of dogs of war with the brew of strength. So that is a very painful little clump in the middle of the Rhordian lines there. Next along we have a horde of honour guard with the wine of elven kind, making them a bit more nimble, as wine doesn't usually do, but this is a special wine, you see. We have a duke on ancient winged arrowles with the shroud of the saint, and then a bit of a gap, and then further along here we have another horde of honour guard, these ones with Makwar's potion of the caterpillar, and another duke, this one on a regular winged arrowles, and he has the brew of haste. So the fastest unit on the battlefield. On the side of the undead, starting on this flank, we have a zombie legion with the hammer of measured force. We have 2 troops of wraiths, and behind them we have a revenant king on a horse with the lute of insatiable darkness represented by a horn. The insatiable horn, if you will. Next we have a horde of werewolves with the helm of the ram for some thunderous charge action. And into the centre we have 2 zombie legions side by side with the necromancer behind them. The necromancer has Bane Chant and the Inspiring Talisman. This zombie legion right here has Blood of the Old King, and this one right here with the bat soaring high has the Blessing of the Gods. Behind them we have another Revenant King on horse with no special upgrade on him at all. Then we have a regiment of Soul Reaver cavalry with the Potion of the Caterpillar, and a skeleton warrior regiment. So, the terrain. Obstacles are worth 1 point at the end of the game, so there is a wall there and a wall here. All the other pieces of terrain on the table will be worth 2 points, so that is the house, this cornfield, this hill, the woods, this cornfield, another hill, and a final cornfield over there. The pieces of terrain that can never be worth double because they skirt the centre line are this obstacle, this hill, and the woods. Now we're going to do the roll-off to see who's going to get the choice of going first or second on camera. Here we go. It's a 3 and a 2, so the undead are going to get the choice. The undead have gone for a measured approach and allowed the League of Rhordia to go first. And there wasn't a whole lot of movement going on. One of the units of Braves has moved up, and in the middle, this big wall of doom here, the 3 volley guns moved up 1 inch, just so that the undead will have to move or face their hot, steamy lead. As we move down here, there isn't much movement again, at all, apart from this duke has positioned himself behind this house, out of sight of many of the units, but not quite all of them. Undead turn 1, and down here, across the line, you can see there's been an advance. The Soul Reaver cavalry didn't really fancy putting themselves in harm's way of the triple volley gun attacks, so they've stayed behind the hill for now, behind the skeletons as well. And here, the necromancer has left himself just in range to inspire these units. The only notable action was these wraiths got up to position behind this duke, and then they were surged by the Revenant King on horse into his rear, but as you can see, despite all those attacks, they only did 2 damage. But it's enough to stop him flying. Well, they did 3 damage actually, but Iron Resolve got one of them back. And over here, a bit of an advance as well. Then here you can see the werewolves just hanging back, surveying the lay of the land, waiting to see which way they should go. Going into Rhordian turn 2, and I think it's about to get spicy. Rhordian turn 2, there hasn't been a vast amount of movement. In the centre, the 3 volley guns peppered away at the zombies, doing 12 damage between them to this legion here. They didn't target the other one. So this one took the brunt of all the fire, and the engineer missed with his shooting attack. Then, the winged Arrowles that was here, the ancient one, charged into the flank of the wraiths, who were then countercharged by the original duke that they attacked. They took 10 damage in total. However, double Onesville. That is where the train stopped. So, the wraiths are alive and ready to fight. However, they're not going to be able to fly, so that's going to limit them slightly, but they will be able to do something. And now these dukes have just got their rears exposed to all and sundry. Undead are poised to take advantage of that. There's a zombie legion right there. So that on its own into a rear surely is enough reason to be worried. And that's without factoring in the other wraiths over here, among other things. So on we go. Undead turn 2, and on this flank the skeletons have moved up closer to the halflings. The Soul Reavers poised to strike behind them, along with this Revenant King as well. Over here, the zombie legion in the centre have moved up a bit, getting closer to those dastardly volley guns. They're backed up by the Necromancer. Over here, this legion of zombies charged into the rear of the Duke. Now, they could have actually been surged into his rear and avoided doing a hindered charge, but unfortunately when I moved that unit, I was planning on doing something else with this Revenant King round on this side involving these wraiths, but because of the distances involved I elected not to do much with them at all. They've just moved out of the charge range of the Honour Guard with the zombies there as backup. These wraiths countercharged into this Duke, so he is up to 4 damage, this one is up to 9, and became wavered as a result of that zombie rear charge. So a fair bit of damage inflicted there. And we're heading into turn 3. Right, we come to you midway through the Rhordian turn 3, and it's become quite complicated, so we want to show you what's going on before the combat phase. So you can see just a bit of repositioning over here, not too much movement going on. And this zombie legion just took the brunt of 3 volley guns, which is why they're up to 18 damage. Couldn't remove them though, so they're looking a bit vulnerable. Over here, we have a Duke, the one that isn't wavered, and these Honour Guard into the zombie legion that's already wounded, so they might be on their way out. These wraiths are also at death's door, despite already being dead technically, and they've also been charged in the flank, but it is hindered, so will that stop them getting the 1 damage they need to get them to double 1s? I would doubt it. So, going into the combat phase now, and the Rhordians will be hoping that both these units are deleted. End of Rhordian turn 3 combat, and as you can see, the zombie legion and the wraiths are dead. Wow, wow, wow. And also, it's going to be pointed out at this stage that I totally forgot to use the Loot of Insatiable Darkness on those zombies last turn, which would have helped them do more damage to the Duke, and as a result, he is now pretty much a threat still. So, some undead units dead. However, these Honour Guard are in a bit of a precarious position. There are zombies nearby, and with surge abilities, could be dicey for them. Midway through Undead turn 3, and it's got quite complicated on both sides of the table. So over here the zombies were just out of range of the Honour Guard, and I didn't fancy the chances of Mr. Revenant King being able to surge them in on his own, so they've decided to just stay there for the turn and let the wraiths go in and deal with the Honour Guard while hindered. The werewolves have charged into the Duke that's taken less damage, leaving this guy pretty much unmolested, and then here the zombie legion were surged into the flank of this Honour Guard, and all the way on this flank the skeletons turned sideways and ran away in that direction, allowing the Soul Reaver Knights to charge into the Braves, which is going to be bloody and brutal, I'm hoping, and then they don't leave their flank open to the other halfling Braves by failing to kill that unit. So, going into combat, I would hope to delete at least a couple of units here. We'll see how it goes though. So, end of the Undead combat phase, and not quite as successful as I was hoping. These Halfling Braves actually survived. They took 14 damage, but they live on. They became wavered only. So it looks like the Soul Reaver is going to take a flank charge, possibly, from some Braves there. Or maybe something else will have a go at them. Over here, the Zombie Legion in the flank, with Elite, 80 attacks. into the flank of the Honour Guard, and they did 4 damage. Wow indeed. So that is pretty awful. One of those wounds obviously came back with the failed nerve test there, so they're only on 3. The werewolves ate the Duke with ease, and then overran a bit just to get out of this guy's arc. And look at this, the Wraiths failed to do any damage at all to these Honour Guard. So another wow, I'm afraid. So only 1 unit killed. Could have done with another one going down there, but alas, it was not to be. Going into turn 4 now. Halfway through Rhordia turn 4, and the Honour Guard showed unprecedented faith in the volley guns because they turned away from the zombies, assuming that, of course, 3 volley guns would kill them off, and it only took 2 to get them to double 1 town, and that was enough to remove them. The other one took aim over here and put 4 damage onto the skeletons, and you can see here that, of course, the Soul Reavers were flank charged by the Halfling Braves, and over on this side, these Honour Guard have gone back into the Wraiths, and they'll be hoping to kill them off. Oh yeah, also, this Duke charged the Necromancer. If the Necromancer survives that, he should be very embarrassed. So, end of Rhordia turn 4, and you can see the Necromancer survived. He only took 1 wound, so it's enough to stop him casting, but it's still embarrassing for the Duke there. Over here, you can see that the Honour Guard killed off the Wraiths, just. They didn't roll a particularly good number of wounds, but then no inspiring in range. This guy was hiding behind the building, so paid the price for that. And over here, the Braves did 0 damage against the Soul Reavers, which isn't completely unheard of, but it's still not ideal. So, going into Undead turn 4 now. Just before the Undead combat phase, the Soul Reavers have countercharged the unhurt Braves, and the wounded unit have taken a charge from the Revenant King, who's hoping he'll be enough to finish them off. And over here, the Necromancer has taken evasive action to get out of the various charge arcs of these units around the place here. And over here, the werewolves have gone into the Honour Guard, and the zombies were surged into the flank. They'll be hindered, because the Revenant King couldn't quite stop that. But I think that's going to be too much for the Honour Guard to take. And it needs to be, because there's another unit of them poised right there, ready to strike. Results of Undead turn 4 combat phase, and you can see here that the Soul Reavers failed to kill this unit. A very bad roll for them. They only did 9 damage, which wasn't enough. And wouldn't you know it, look at this, the Revenant King did more damage to these Braves, double 1s. So they are absolutely fine. So that evens up the double 1 stakes in this game. And then over here, something did go well though, because the Honour Guard were killed, werewolves in the front, zombies in the flank. That was enough to take them out. The Hammer of Measured Force came in quite handy there. So, going into turn 5, and these Honour Guard are poised to strike at something. And also, Mr. Duke, I forgot that this is the extra fast Duke, so he's actually in charge range of the flank of these guys here, the Soul Reavers. And I don't think I mentioned, they actually wavered this unit right here. So, at most, they'll probably eat a really painful flank charge from him, and then maybe some other shenanigans depending what can be manoeuvred over here, but we'll see. Either way, it's not going to be too pretty for them. So, partway into Rhordia turn 5, and you can see the charge into the flank from the Duke did go off, and here the Braves have countercharged into the Revenant King, so as a result of this waver unit moving backwards a little bit, should they get lucky and kill him, they may get an overrun there, so that would be nice, a bit of a bonus for them. Speaking of a bonus, the Necromancer, on a whim, the Engineer decided to just have a go at him with his pistol, and wouldn't you know it, 1 damage, and he is dead. 10 twice on the nerve roll, so he's gone. And here you can see that the Honour Guard have charged into the werewolves, so that's going to be an interesting battle if the werewolves don't instantly die, which they may do, but they are inspired, so you never know. And going into the combat phase. Results of the turn 5 combat phase. So you can see these werewolves took 11 damage and became wavered, which is probably about as good as the Undead could have hoped for there. And over here, this was slightly worse than the Undead were hoping for, because the Soul Reavers became wavered. They took 8 damage from 10 attacks. So the Duke is really on form here. That huge fly-in that he made, all that momentum he built up, just smashed their Undead armour and spilt some of that vampiric blood about the place. So they're a bit stuck now. And, wow, 1 damage done to the Revenant King, so he's fine. And with that, we are going into the Undead turn 5. Undead turn 5 up to the combat phase. The Revenant King has charged into these Braves. The Skeletons have charged into these Braves. And over here, The werewolves could not sufficiently get out of the way, so they've had to position themselves in such a way that is going to allow the zombies to come in and munch on those guys next turn. And the Revenant King has just got himself slightly out of harm's way there, so he's not getting in the way. And we're going into the combat phase now. It's getting pretty quick, not too many undead units left. End of Undead turn 5. The skeletons did their job, they finished off the Braves. The Revenant King did some more damage to that unit, but not enough to kill them. So, that's going to be turn 6 now for the Rhordians, and they'll be hoping to finish off these heavily damaged, really expensive elite units now. That's going to be their priority, I presume. Part way through Rhordian turn 6, and you can see the Honour Guard gone back into the werewolves to finish them off. Over here, the Braves and the Dogs of War just moved sideways a bit to open up the firing lanes for the volley guns to finish off the Soul Reavers, and they did successfully, and the Duke has gone into the skeletons. So, going into the combat phase now, and will the werewolves survive? They are inspired, so we'll see. There's always the hope for that double one. Although it's slightly lessened by the fact that this Revenant King neglected to charge this unit when he could have done a minute ago, moving out the way to see if the zombies could surge, and then once they couldn't, he thought, well, you know what, I'm not going to do anything then. End of Rhordian turn 6, maybe their final turn, maybe not. The Honour Guard finished off the werewolves successfully, now they're just facing down the zombies. And over here, the skeletons were not killed by the Duke, so they are going to be able to do something in turn 6. Okay, so a bit of lay of the land here before the Undead possibly final turn. You can see the Halflings have got a lot more units left, but the scenario is pretty close at this stage, because the Halflings are quite congested over there. So we shall see. I think if it goes to turn 7, Halflings are a definite advantage, but the Undead could still get something if we end on turn 6. End of Undead turn 6. The zombies charged into the Honour Guard, did a little bit of damage, not enough to remove them, so there's some contested objectives around here. Over here, the skeletons went into the Duke, they almost got him, but not quite. And the Revenant King went into the Braves, but couldn't get them either. So no killing inflicted, but the skeletons are currently controlling these woods by being within 3 inches. The Halflings are controlling this field. Then over here, the zombies are controlling this wall. No one's controlling the house. And the Rhordians are controlling this hill. So, with all that in mind, that puts Rhordia in the lead by 4 points to 3 at this stage. So, we're going to roll to see if the game ends. 1, 2, 3, the game is over. It's going on to another turn, so the Undead are still in it. Here we go. Rhordian turn 7, and down here the Honour Guard went back into the zombies and did 12 damage, so the zombies are going to survive the game and they're going to get one more crack at killing the Honour Guard. Over here, the volley guns wiped out the skeletons, taking away a scoring unit there, and everyone else is just piling up on this field, just to make absolutely sure that that's going to be held at the end of the game. And going into the Undead turn now, so it's all down to the zombies, because if they could kill the Honour Guard, then it's very likely going to be an Undead win. If they can't, very likely going to be a Rhordian win. End of Undead turn 7. Shortly anyway. So, the Revenant King killed the Duke, who was such a thorn in my side, so a bit of vengeance on him. And then over here, the zombies rolled a ridiculous number of 5s to hit. And they've actually got the Honour Guard at death's door. They're on 14 damage. No inspiring anywhere near. The Revenant King helped out a little bit as well. So, I just need to roll 4 on these 2 beautiful Ultibash dice in order to kill them and win the game. Let's find out whether that happens or not. Here we go. Anything less than a 4 and the Rhordians win. Wouldn't you know it, it is a 3. What? Wow. Double wow. In fact, maybe even triple wow in honour of the 3 that came up on the dice. So you can't script a drama like that. So the zombies will bounce off, and because of that, that is not enough to claim it. The Rhordians will take the victory, and they will hold this incredibly important field containing numerous farms and valuable forests and hills that contain precious resources such as grass and earth. And that means that the allied forces of nature are going to come in at some point, led by that green lady who gave up a barrel of her finest apples to bribe the Rhordians into this combat in the first place, and the Undead will be duly chased off once and for all. Okay, let's have a left-handed handshake across the battlefield.